Knowing what I know now on the Army civilian side, so actually I would really go back in the Army civilian sector rather than the Army active component. I didn't know it existed, and I think the events that they have, like the Army Center of Influence and those type of events, if I was exposed to that as that junior officer or that junior soldier, then I would have stayed in because I saw what the why was, and I saw, a different level of the Army that I have never ever seen. And it was inspiring in so many different levels. So I wish that they would take those programs and implement them now at the lowest level for soldiers, just to see. I think retention would be a lot higher and morale would be out of the roof.
Return to Roots podcast. Today we bring you Paden. She is an Army vet, just transitioned out of the military 2 months ago, and she's here to share her story about why she chose to get out and what she's doing now and where she sees herself in the future. Without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Seriously.
Yeah, it's really an honor to have veterans come on the show and share their story. And it's even more awesome to hear somebody a little bit fresher and still going into the transition, because there's a lot of service members that could totally relate to what's going on. First off, before we start, everybody, I want you to hit that like, subscribe, share Paden's story. It's going to be a really good one, and I'm super happy to have her on here. First, how do we get a hold of you?
Oh, yes. So my LinkedIn is Paden Sickles. The company is SickFit. And then the website is right there below. So just Paden Sickles. You can Google me too. I love that now. I'm Googleable, right?
Hey, I want everybody to go on here, go to sickfit.us, and I want you to order something on there. Okay, let's support Paden and her mission. I know I'm about to order me a pair of a 4-pack of socks, get some mix of
Let's go.
Totally appreciate you guys doing that and supporting SickFit. Hey, really quick, before we go too much further into this, what kind of content do you suggest our transitioning listeners to digest while they're in their transition?
First and foremost, your podcast, of course, Mil2Vet. Like, why would they
Whoop,
not?
whoop.
Right? But just really find your niche and figure out what you like. So, initially I started out reading a lot of books, and I was like, I spend a lot of time looking down, and it's not something I wanted to do. So for me, it ended up being audiobooks and podcasts. So find your niche and find what you like.
What is SickFit?
Great question. So SickFit is a socks and streetwear company, and it's derived from my last name, Sickles. So it's a little bit of wordplay. We'll get into it a little bit later. I know we kind of talked about this, but really it was just finding a problem that was occurring in the military and then fixing it. So yeah.
And you mentioned that right now, you finding a problem, then fixing it. What made you? So you had 11 years in the military,
Mhm.
right? What made you change your mind between staying in? Because that's what we call the hump, right? That
Yep.
is the perfect time where we have to make the decision of whether we're going to try to take it for the rest of our career, and hopefully retire, or this is the time to cut it quits, right? What made you make that decision of saying, you know what, I'll hang my hat and move on with my life?
Absolutely. So I'm going to get really transparent with you, all right?
Please, 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 please.
I don't tell this story often, and I don't tell it often as I should. But honestly, things were falling into place professionally, and they were falling out of place physically. And when I say that, I was receiving a lot of the accolades within the military. Air assault, got it. Expert soldier badge, got it. But in the meantime, my body was not withstanding these different things because a lot of the train-ups, like the sapper school, all of those different schools, it just wasn't withstanding. So right after I tore my ACL, it was a battalion turkey bowl game. We were cutting. It was me and somebody else. We were cutting at each other. Our knees collided. I tore my ACL the first time. It was horrible. It's probably the most excruciating pain I've ever felt in my entire life. And then about a year and a half later, I was day zero, expert soldier, like day zero. Yes, I'm saying this right. I tore my ACL again. So same leg, same everything. It was horrible. Like I went through it again. So then as I was recovering, they hit a nerve in my leg and they're like, hey, we probably gonna have to go back in and operate again. I'm like, the third time on one leg, I don't know if I can do that. So within that surgery, I ended up having two herniated discs in my back and two bulging discs in my back. So it was just a lot. It was becoming a lot on my body. So, a lot of my senior leaders were like, hey, we'll continue to fight for you. You Paden, you can't get out. Paden, you're too good to get out. Paden, we'll do anything to keep you in. We can do anything. Like we'll write waivers for you, like everything. And I'm like, look, like maybe this is my sign. And I stopped trying to pray myself out of situations. Like when I heard that I was like, my body is breaking down. Like that's nobody wants to hear that. You're crying and you're like, wow, like, what am I gonna do? But for me, I think everything happens for a reason, and that was my reason. Is God was telling me, hey, like Paden, go do this, and you need to go be great at it, and you're gonna be great at it. And I am. Here I am today. So
That's beautiful. So and having to go.
it doesn't feel beautiful.
Not three knee surgeries or ACLs. Oh my goodness. And herniated discs.
Yeah,
Ooh, woo. That's rough.
But now you're here.
I am.
But now you're here, and how you seem like you're a very optimistic kind of person, right?
Very.
I'm sure that even as you were going through those struggles, you started to have doubts, started to have maybe even question why me or anything like that. How did you keep yourself from going down the downward spiral of negativity? What made you pull yourself out?
Mhm. So I would say a few things. One, I'm a very optimistic, positive person in general. And anybody will tell you that if you know me and you say that I think this or, maybe this, I'm going to say when. And I change your vocabulary and I'm going to put that, that change the narrative to when it's going to happen. So for me, it was just staying true to me and staying true to what I wanted to do and the mission. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. SickFit was started based off the low quality socks in the market within the military community. For me, I was spending about $200 on socks a month, and then same thing for boots, just going through boots, burning through them, right? Constantly on my feet. All the 12-mile ruck marches, the 5-mile, the 5-mile runs on Monday, all those different things. I'm like, man, like nothing's working. So, I went around the world. I tried those 87 different pair of socks, found the perfect blend, how I wanted to engineer SickFit socks, and it worked. And for me, it was staying true to my mission, knowing that I am solving a problem for everybody's foot problems. And, and I'll be honest, at first, when I first launched, I probably bought about 50,000 pair of just black socks and they were not selling. So I'm freaking out. Like, what do I need to do? Like, oh my God, how am I going to stay? I just spent all this money. Like, but it was just like, Peyton, calm down. Like, you got it. Like, our slogan is great men move slowly. And that's really just says that success doesn't happen overnight and it takes time. And, just be patient, stay true to you, patience, perseverance, and persistence, and it'll happen. So it's just really the narrative and the mindset and staying true and authentic to what you set out to do and be.
It's crazy because being in the military, right? I always hated the socks. Always. And
I
just like
saw
you,
it. I got you.
yeah,
Yeah, and they
and
mess
that
up
was,
your feet. They change the
yeah.
color of your feet, and like, yeah, the countless hours of wearing. You're working 16-hour days. You're wearing your boots at least 18 hours. After that, yeah, it gets bad.
And just like you mentioned, they don't last, right? So you're buying them over and over, and it feels like a waste of time. There was finally a one brand that kind of was like the best of both worlds, and I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna be like attached to this for the rest of my career because this is the best that I can get, right? Uh, and now I'm just like, I will never wear those socks,
No,
ever,
ever.
ever, ever. And I tried recently, and I was like, no, they literally bring me PTSD. I'm like, no. So, but I never, and being having an entrepreneurial mindset, never did I think of Making socks. That was never a thought that came through my mind.
Me either. I was just frustrated, you know? Like, here I am on a 12-mile rep march. Like, what can I do to fix this? And that's what happened, you know?
I like how you said right off the bat, I found a problem and found the answer to that problem. And a lot of us see problems all the time and we just go, not worth my energy, and just keep moving forward. And it's funny because if you sit down and you just look at a problem, you're like, what's the problem? Like, why did we start Mil2Vet? Well, that's because we identified that people didn't know about the resources, and also people get advice about transitioning from service members that are still in, which is not the right place that you should be getting advice on what to do after you get out. I'm sorry, love you, brothers and sisters that are still serving. You should tell them to go talk to a veteran that has recently transitioned, or somebody that's been out for a while, so that we can hear their story and kind of relate. Everybody, not everybody's going to have the same story, but everybody can somewhat relate to every single veteran getting out. So I love that you found that problem, you solved it, and now at least you got a customer here. I'm going to go buy some after this episode.
Let's go.
Yeah. And by the time this episode releases, you guys, if I get my socks, I will definitely do a video of me trying on my socks, a special episode.
You're gonna have to wear pants though.
And I'm gonna have to charge double. I'm gonna have to charge double because you guys are gonna be getting some feet pick from me, okay?
You gotta charge for that. Yes, definitely. No free feet pick.
I'm gonna show the ankles.
You see what you just started? Now I'm gonna have to deal with
I
this.
told you I was gonna keep you entertained.
So when you were transitioning out, what did it take for you to find your mindset? I'm doing this. I'm getting out. This is what I'm doing. What did it take for you to find that?
So I had a leader tell me, this is like probably early on in my transition. And he said, "Hey, Paden, how's your little sock side hustle going?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, let's go, baby." Like, like now you got me amped. I'm like, let's go. Like, naysayers, honestly, like, when people tell you can't do something, you're like, all right, it drives a different kind of spark in you. And so I would say that was a big piece of it. And then really, once I put so much equity in the company, I already committed. So I'm like,
there's no going back.
There's no going back. Like, this has to work, right?
She over there on the beach burning all the boats. We attacking? We attacking, or we dying on this little rock? Okay.
No, but on a serious note, it was watching the little kids that look up to me, and watching those young little eager, baby entrepreneurs that I taught to a class out in Savannah here, and it was about 65 kids, and I asked them how many wanted to be entrepreneurs, or if they even knew what entrepreneurship was, and a lot of them didn't. But by the time I left, everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur and follow in my footsteps. And I'm like, wow, that's impact, and that's something that I want to continue. And really, that's part of it.
Did you know that you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
I knew my parents are both entrepreneurs, so I knew it was going to come to me at some point in time, way, shape, or form, but I didn't know it was going to be socks, and I'll be honest, right? So when I started the SickFit, the sock company, right? I would go up to like PT formations and be like, "Hey, swap your socks out real quick before we go on this run," or "Hey, swap your socks out before you do that run." Just asking people, right? And I was a little like, shy about selling socks, right? You're like, "You sell socks?" I'm like, "Yeah." Now I'm like, "Yeah, I sell socks," right? So confidence grew, I would say, with the company when it started to become more established. And, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm really," now everybody calls me the sock girl, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But yeah, I mean, I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when.
So you went and going back a little to your story. So you found the problem. You tried a whole bunch of things to fix the problem. When did you know that you actually had your solution? What was your "this is it" moment?
Yeah, so I had narrowed my selection down to about 10 different pair of socks, and I took those 10 and I kept trying them on different people in different climates, different regions. So Drum, super cold, Carson, super dry, Texas, super humid, and collectively I got all of their feedback. And I would take all the data and the statistics that we were getting from each person that wore the socks, and that's kind of how we formed that final product. Is we used everybody's data and statistics based off of their feedback.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like a whole science. Like, I'm an engineer in a different way now. I was an engineer in the army, but now I'm engineering socks.
Did you go in with that mindset into it? I'm gonna engineer the socks out of it.
hmm Yep. So my family's like all engineers, and it runs in the family. I just chose like a different path as the engineer. Like I thought when army engineer, I didn't think I was gonna be blowing stuff up, and like I thought I'd be like doing some civil work and a little more horizontal stuff. But no, I just blew stuff up and combat engineer. So I chose the lesser of the engineers, but that was my mindset to engineer side. Correct.
Hey, blown shit up is actually a fun thing to do. I'm just saying.
Great, but then you do it so much, and you're like, dang, like this is all I do. Like,
It becomes repetitive. You lose the fun.
yeah.
Get some tetramite and go out into the wilderness somewhere where we could go pew pew and blow some things up. Um, you know, that is that I really like that you just expressed that you came from a family of engineers, and engineering may not look the same uh, like you were saying. So that's a really important point for people to understand. Just because you go to school, just because you have training for building or blowing things up in your case, but just because you have that training doesn't mean that that's what you're limited to after service. While you're in service, like you were side hustling it, right? It was a side hustle, which is understandable because you put your priorities to where the job should be at. You didn't drop your pack and go, I'm just going to focus on the sock thing. You knew that you had to take care of business, but once it was your turn to start gearing towards your transition, you started taking care of that, and that's awesome. I love that you expressed that. What what is it that made you say I'm going to choose socks? Not I'm going to choose boots, or I'm not going to I'm going to choose t-shirts, or what was it that was like I think socks is it for me? Do you have like an obsession with the socks? Do you have a wall full of puppet socks or something? I mean, with all those
Oh
socks,
my god.
I'm imagining all the different uses that you got for these socks. I
That's
almost
so funny.
expected you to go, this is
So
a socky sock, and this is another sock.
yeah, so what's funny is my friend said all the time that Peyton has this is not real life, but I'm just saying what my friends say. Jokingly, they say that Peyton has a foot fetish. And they say that because, we take pictures of a lot of feet. But it's like the mannequin feet. So like
I don't
like
know if that's
That's
any
sometimes
even
better.
worse.
I don't know if that's any better.
but like sometimes you'll walk in my house and they'll just be like mannequin feet. People are like, what the like um
Seriously.
gosh,
Oh
this
man.
I do not have a real life foot fetish. So for everybody listening, I do not have a foot fetish, just so you know.
Yeah, that's
Allegedly,
what
not.
all people with foot fetish say.
But wow, I'm over here like about to cry. This is really fun.
But send me your feet pics with my socks on them,
Right.
please.
Hey, I charge for those. But I have nice feet, all right?
Is that why you started the data collection?
Right, there it is. Yep. um, but but I think for me it was when I was spending all the money on the boots and none of the boots were working. I was like, well, let's dive into the problem a little bit deeper and kind of figure out what the root of it is. And just a lot of Google. I stay up late, super late at night, and just start Googling like, hey, like how can you fix foot problems, things like that. And part of it was saying that it was the sole, but what I realized is just over time that people were overlooking the sock.
And so you did 11 years, right? And then before that, you were commissioned, right? You started your career. Be, before you joined the military. Did you think that you were going to be commissioned from the beginning, as you started your journey?
Yeah. So I went to University of Kentucky, and I told my parents, I was like, "Hey, I'm joining the military," and they're like, "What?" I don't come from a military family. I told you I come from an entrepreneur family, and they're like, "You're joining the army," and I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, you're going to college too." So I'm like, "All right." And they're like, "You can join the army, but figure it out." So I'm like, "Okay." So I was like, that's how I ended up commissioned, and is I simultaneously commissioned and graduated at the same time.
If you could go back in time to high school, when you made that decision, that you right before you were going to join the army, whenever you had that epiphany, right? What advice would you give yourself to be successful as you're going through college and as you're commissioning to start your career, to be successful in the military?
I like to consider myself having a very successful career in the military. However, I do believe that I would go back and tell myself to start integrating within different organizations sooner and take advantage of the programs that the Army offers. And it's like you all said earlier, that's the whole point of you guys' podcast is to kind of let those transitioning members aware of those programs. So, like for me, I didn't learn about a lot of the programs until probably super late in my career, when I hit captain. So, the Army credentialing program, just like the entrepreneurship type programs, the operation startups, there's a lot of programs out there per post, even with the NWR that a lot of people don't know about. And I would wish that I would have integrated within those organizations sooner.
But you did integrate after the fact with them. Um, and then what was the biggest takeaway from what were the organizations that molded you the most?
Ooh, post or while I was in?
Still while you were in.
While I was in Army credentialing program, because it afforded me the opportunity just to build my resume and get a lot of the certifications that um, typically are super expensive, and they paid for it. So the Army credentialing program.
As you were going through all of this, and you were talking about your obviously your overnight success with socks, right? um, that led you into getting out. What advice and how early would you give yourself before you started transitioning, before you started saying, you obviously had the timeline that you said, you know what, this is it, I'm out, right? How early did that happen, and how early would you want it to have go back?
hmm For me, it happened about 8 months out. Looking back, I wish that I feel like at times when you're in the military, you become so fixated on your career and your job that you lose sight of yourself at times. And you focus so much on the Army's mission and you kind of put yourself and your plans on the back burner because you want to succeed and supersede that job. So I wish that I continually worked on myself the entire time that I was in the service, rather than sometimes we get into those demanding positions as company commanders or XOs, battalion XOs, first sergeants, platoon sergeants. It doesn't matter, but those are very work extensive, heavy positions, and we kind of lose ourselves in what we really want to do because we're so tired after that 16-hour day. But I wish that I want everybody listening here to just take that time and figure out what you want. Take that one day out of the month, sit down and say, hey, like, yes, I'm working on my career in the Army and this is where I want to go. But just always have that option and kind of sit down and think about what you want long term after the Army or military as a whole.
It's not going to be the same for everybody. Some people are going to be going to school.
Yep.
Some people are going to be, utilizing their VA benefits to buy a home, using that VA loan because that's a pretty powerful tool. Some people are going to be taking a trade. Some people, you just got to put energy back into yourself and your future. Like that's the biggest thing that I love to tell people is what's your end game, and are you giving it that any food at all? Like, are you feeding it at all? Because if you don't feed it, then you're going to find yourself in a situation where you have to do something, not you get to do something.
Definitely. I agree.
Did you go into the military thinking that you were going to stay for the your entire career, or what was your initial mindset?
My initial mindset, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make a career out of this. I love this, like I know I'm gonna do like life, like that's what we say, life, right?
Right.
But then you go to certain duty stations, you're like, man, forget this. I don't want to do this anymore. Like I've been in the field for 30 days straight, like NTC, this, that, right? And then you're like, oh, it's not so bad. So you go through that wave. It's like a heartbeat, right?
Right.
It goes up, it
Right.
goes
Right.
but I think that's the beauty of it and the journey of it. So initially, yes, I thought I was gonna make a career out of it. But I think, at times as individuals, we outgrow certain positions and jobs, and that's our foundation. And I found that as I continue to progress and aggress in my career, that, I was gradually outgrowing the Army as in my position. And my brain was no longer being stimulated and challenged as much as I would have liked it to. And I knew that when it was becoming too easy for me, I had to make a decision and kind of find something else that was going to challenge me. And now here I am in entrepreneurship where, I work 24 hours a day and, don't sleep and everything's a challenge. So you get what you asked for, right?
You're definitely stimulated.
Yeah.
Because you have to drink like 5 cups of coffee to get through the 24-hour shifts.
Fun fact, actually, I'm not a caffeine person at all. So what you see is what you get. People are like, I am the most energetic, sleepy person ever. So
Well, it's because of all those siestas. That's why you're working such a long shift.
man,
No, I love it, and man, that's awesome. Like you're such an inspiration, and I know that there's going to be a listener out there that wants to get right where you're at, and that's why we tell people go in to the website, look at everybody that's recorded on here, and connect with them on LinkedIn. Like because you never know, like your story, your journey could end up also helping someone else's journey, and that's what this is all about, is pretty much helping each other out through our stuff.
definitely. And like you said, like, whoever this story helps or whoever my story helps, like, I am here for anybody and I am an open book. I'll tell you whatever you want. I will help you in the way that you want to go. But really, like you all said, this is a platform. You all's platform really is just to continue to spread that message. And I'm glad you all brought me on here to share my story. And I just want to, help in whatever way that I can to anybody, really.
What would be the first thing for someone that is thinking about doing and opening a business, right? Um, or they've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but they don't know what to do or how to do it. What would be the first thing first advice that you would tell them?
So I would, one, for anybody who's thinking about it, you keep titter tattering, just do it. Take the risk. Take the leap. That's the first step. And two, find yourself a really good mentor. There are phenomenal people out there, myself, like I will help, that will help you and want to see you win and succeed. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We can't take all the money with us when we die. We can't. There's no amount of money that can make us all completely happy. Well, to some people, but there's genuine people out there that want to see you win and succeed. So get you a good mentor, and don't think about it. Just do it. Take that risk on yourself.
Who was your mentor?
Ooh, I have quite a few.
Shout out, shout out, shout out.
Ooh, let's go. So I have Lauren Hope, she is amazing over at Second Service Foundation. I have Bobby Butler, he is a veteran as well. I have, who else do I have? Abby Ammon, she's amazing. Corey Weathers, who else? There's so many people that have helped me along my journey, and I'm just super thankful. But I will give credit to a lot of organizations. So Second Service Foundation has been a cornerstone and a backbone for me. And then also IVMF, amazing resources, amazing programs, VWAS, Edge. Yeah, those are some big programs that I'm hold near and dear to my heart, and I'm thankful, very thankful.
Yeah, you just got one of my questions. I was about to ask you, what resources would you like to highlight? And so, being an entrepreneur and transitioning and all that stuff is super complicated, especially if you were in a leadership role and you're also turning over and you're transitioning and you got all these things going on. How did you keep your compass pointing true north? What helped you keep organized, and what kept you focused on your purpose?
Yes. One, I thought when I got out of the Army, I would be like, okay, Outlook calendar, gone. Don't worry about it anymore, right? I live my life on an Outlook calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen, you know? So, I color code, I time block, I do all of that. I'm like, wow, this is worse than when I was in the Army. So that's number one, right? And then number two is, I kind of said it earlier, but really staying true to you and staying true to your authentic purpose and what you want to do is, oftentimes we get veered off track, or, we get distracted, or certain people are kind of get in our way, or, we do certain things that just kind of get us off path. But really just constantly looking back at where you started, one, and two, just staying true to the mission and the goal. I'm a huge Dan Sullivan fan, so yeah, he kind of says it best, and it's, look at your past to see where you're going and see where you've been.
With that, right? You talk about looking at your past. How much of an influence have your parents been on, first off, your career, right? Your life, and then you becoming an entrepreneur and learning from them?
Yeah, we're about to get deep again.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, right? So I'm gonna just tell you this little story. My parents play a pivotal role in this, actually. I didn't know it at the time. So I took an elective African American art history class my sophomore year of college. I was tasked with creating a piece that reflected myself. And I ended up creating a wooden pendant, or excuse me, a wooden necklace. And at the heart of it was a pendant of my hand carved out. And on top of that hand, I wrote "Great Men Move Slowly." And at the time, I gifted it to my father. And I was like, didn't think anything of it, right? Just solo art project you make at school, you give it to your dad. Oh, how cute, right? So fast forward, he would always echo those words back to me, like, "Great men move slowly." And then, still not thinking anything of it. And then it didn't really, really hit and resonate until probably about 3 or 4 months ago. Um, I got asked to go speak to on a stage in New York for the Women's History Month celebration. I'm like, why me? Like, I don't even live in New York. But I'm like, okay, whatever. So the same day, I got a card in the mail that said "Great Men Move Slowly," and that was it. It was from my father. And this entire time, I didn't realize that that's what he was telling me was, great men move slowly. Things happen, and they happen in sequence. And same those three words I mentioned earlier: patience, persistence, and perseverance. You know, that's right. That's what it is. And so that's kind of how it's evolved, and how my parents have played a pivotal role in my entrepreneur journey, and just constantly reminding me of the process and the journey.
Do you think you could be here without them, their example?
Absolutely not. They shaped me. They've molded me. And I think what I appreciate the most is they have never made a decision for me. And they'll ask me in a way that, well, what do you want to do? You know? And I appreciate that. I feel like oftentimes parents kind of push you in a certain direction or make you do something. And it was never, ever that for us, my siblings either. It was more so, well, what does Paden want to do? Well, think about it, take a day, and make a decision. And at the time you're getting frustrated because you're like, dang, I just need help. Like,
Just
just
give
give
me
me
the
an answer.
answer.
Give me an answer. What do I do? Like, but they never did it, and I appreciate that, because if they would have made any of those decisions for me, there might have been some resentment, and there is none, because they solely let us focus on us and our paths.
So I'm not sure if you saw our logo. It's has "Build Your Tribe" inside of our logo. What what kind of people do you surround yourself with? Who who is your tribe comprised of?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's very diverse, and I love that, right? But I think my tribe that I thought was my tribe is not my tribe, or clearly is not now. And I say that because, as grow and as an entrepreneur, you learn who is really for you and not for you. And I say that because I remember I went to an event, and I'll hit on it in a second, but I ended up getting stabbed in the back by two of my people that I thought were super close to me, and I relied upon for the business, things like that. But that same day, I met Lauren Hope, who I mentioned earlier. And Lauren Hope literally has changed my life. She is an amazing resource, mentor, friend, everything. And from meeting her, like, she is just truly took me under her wing, and she doesn't even know this. But she is just amazing to me, right? But I surround myself with like-minded people, other entrepreneurs, obviously, funny people. I'm pretty goofy, so if you can't tolerate my goofiness, then you're probably not gonna work out. I'm a little sarcastic, but really, it's just yeah. And then those people who are hungry and eager that want to, become an entrepreneur or need help in that mentorship or in that world, whatever. So very diverse. 10 years? Hopefully, I can have some kids and a family. No, but honestly, yes, that's a big win for me. That is very important. Like, that is what I'm yearning for that. So if you know somebody, just
Well, now the podcast is gonna purposely advertise for you. We'll make that one of the shorts. Hey, for anyone that is listening and finds Paden attractive, her mind, her brain, who she is, and she's goofy, hey, hit her up.
yeah, LinkedIn, anything, I will respond. I promise.
Make sure that you enjoy socks
And feet.
and the goofiness.
Just change your profile picture. All right, everybody. If you're listening to this and you're going to message her, change your profile picture to a feet pic, and she will choose you.
I will choose you. My name is Paden, and I approve that message.
My
Wow,
goodness,
that is
girl.
so funny. Oh my
Oh man.
gosh. I told you I'd keep you all entertained. I told you this.
Whenever you run for Congress, this video is gonna pop up.
You're gonna have kids hiding their feet and parents are scared. Like, oh my gosh.
Hide your feet, hide your socks. She coming for you.
Oh my gosh. That is so
She stole the soles out of my shoes.
oh my goodness gracious. That's funny. But on a serious note, where do I see myself in 10 years? Obviously, I'm heavy on the family. That's a must for me. But really, just that SickFit as a global leader in the industry, the sock industry and the streetwear industry, and then really successful in the government contracting space, and then really just continuing to help those junior, senior, doesn't really matter, those personnel transitioning. And let's really, the big thing here is let's do this again in 10 years on this platform and see where you all are at and where we're both at. And we'll tell the story again.
Yeah, what I would love to do, right, as the journey to document your journey and your transition, because right now it's just beginning, is to bring you back here in about 5 to 6 months, see where you're at, and then from there, a year out from your transition, see how much your mindset and your perspective has changed, to be able to have basically the timeline and the trajectory, see where you thought you were going to be at, where you're at now, and see how they line up and see if everything that you have right now is still lines up with where you were at, obviously 6 months, a year before.
I love it. We'll talk about
She
some
said
more
she loves
feet.
it.
Hopefully, I'll be in a relationship by then. Like, when I hop into a relationship based off this episode, I'm like, thanks guys so much. It's gonna be like that 90-day fiance, right? Like,
So what you're saying is we're gonna be the guest of honor if that
yes, of
happens. Whoop,
course, of
whoop.
course. Y'all can
We'll
be the
stream it.
crashers.
We'll
You can
stream
do
it
whatever you
live.
want.
All right, everybody. If you haven't figured it out, we're on the Mil2Vet dating site. Feet pics only. Everybody's got to have a feet pic profile. We're not going to do faces. None of that. You'll be judged based off of your feet.
Just so everybody knows, they told me to say all this. So I'm kidding. No, they did not. No, they didn't.
Hayden, thank you so much for coming on here. Um, we really do enjoy you, and we really are super excited to be a part of your journey, be a part of your story, and your family now. You're part of the tribe. So thank you so much for coming on here and recording with us. Before I let you go, though, do you have any final rounds, saved rounds, or alibis?
Thank you for having me and continue to do what you all are doing. For all of your listeners, like, wow, just if you need anything, we're all here for you. And you have this platform and this network. Don't be afraid and just take that leap. And, Mil2Vet's got you, SickFit's got you, Paden's got you. Don't hesitate to reach out because we're all here to help you.
And with that, thank you so much again. Thank you, and we'll keep in touch. However, we can help you. As I mentioned before, we're firm believers of all racing tides race all ships. And we're one community.
All right, brothers and sisters. Hey, you transitioning service members, it is your transition. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. So take charge of it. Mil2Vet out.